Greetings. My name is Alyssa, and I use they, them pronouns. Welcome to whatever time and space you're in. I'm here in the middle evening, post-sunset. I live on a little sort of deciduous rainforest island, and the time of the moon cycle right now is waning towards the dark moon. And so I thought I would offer something that is a little bit quieter and slower. Often there's a lot of strengthening, and often we are rather robust in our movements. And so this class is low to the ground. We won't stand up. Often refer to these practices, some people call them restorative. Some people refer to them as yin classes. They're kind of different things and sometimes kind of feel the same. We can talk about it more if you're curious. Feel free to reach out. Otherwise, I'll talk a little bit about what yin work is. That's the tradition that I'm trained in. We're focusing on our connective tissue. So we stay in the postures, and we're not trying to be muscular. So we're not trying to be active. And so I'm utilizing a couple of props today. I have 2 yoga blocks, and I have a little blanket. You could also use blocks, rolled up yoga mats work, folded up towels work. If you need more lift or structure, if you have like a 12-pack of soda cans around or a stack of books, sometimes those sorts of things help. Low stools, feel free to get creative. And because this is a video, feel free to stop and start things. Inside of yin practice, a lot of time in our transition, and we want to take that time and let it be slow for the benefit into the body and into the self. So please feel free to use this tool as it is. Sometimes it can be frustrating when we integrate things beyond sort of our general physical self, even the mat, right? Sometimes we slip on it if you're using one. I always find props, straps. Oh, how do I grab the strap and get it to wrap around anything? Same thing with the idea here that we're dealing with technology, right? So if something happens and you have to go get a charger, or you're in your house as opposed to in the ashram or the yoga room or something along those lines, so you might have to fend off a cat or go feed a child or something like that. Allow this practice to be accessible to you in that way. So even if you only spend 10 minutes and do 5 minutes of the video, etc., allow the ritual of doing it all to be a part of it. And so it's not about tuning something out or changing something, but allowing yourself to practice as you are, how things really are. Okay, I'm going to walk back to my mat. We're going to do this a little bit yin-yang style, which means we'll do yin postures first and then do a little bit of movement at the end. My hope this week is to cultivate a sense of keeping tender-heartedness and openness as far as practice is concerned. It is always so tempting to close off and not feel how we feel, right? Especially if we cannot take action with those feelings. And so I offer today that you might just let yourself be how you actually are. You don't have to replicate or produce any certain type of feeling. It doesn't have to be particularly dramatic or particularly peaceful. But paying attention to how things are as they are might allow you to get perspective, right, on what to do with those feelings and sensations, if anything at all, or how to be with them over time and space. All right, we're going to get started with this posturally. We're going to begin first by finding a seat. So I'm going to sit up on my yoga props. And I like to begin these practices by uniting with chanting. In this case, we'll keep it simple. 3 rounds of the seed sound of Om. Om is a secular chant. Acknowledge the interconnection between all things. You can sit any way you like. You can always sit up on a chair. Right? It doesn't have to replicate necessarily. You can close your eyes or let them fall on something soft in front of you. Take a moment to let the front of your rib cage feel lifted and open, to let your head feel stacked, the curves of your spine express themselves. To clear and prepare the channel of your body, take an inhale in through your nose. Open your mouth to exhale, HA. Inhale, prepare to Om. let yourself breathe normally. Right? For yin practice, we don't need an ujjayi breath. But if you tend to experience stress and slowing down your breath will help you feel relaxed or at ease, it's always okay to breathe slowly. You might count the length of your breaths slowly up to 4 and down, 4 or more, the inhales and the exhales. All right. We'll begin the seated forward fold. So I'm up on a block right now. And you might do that too. You could sit up on the edge of a rolled mat as well, on the edge of a blanket, and take my legs out long. For me, my knees bend backwards, so I'll put a blanket underneath my knees so that they feel relaxed. I'm just going to do a seated forward fold, so I'll pull the flesh out from underneath me. Sometimes we use different postures, different names for yin postures. I'm going to kind of be straightforward about their shapes. We sit, we fold forward. You might fold a little or a lot. So I'm a little bit close to a bed, so if I were needing support, I might pull myself up close to it and just lean forward onto it. If you find that a little bit of support could help, you might bring your block to catch your sternum, your chest bone on your way down, to catch your chin or your forehead. You can always set up a long pillow. Sometimes it's nice just to have a catch for your head. And allow yourself to hang forward. If you don't have something to catch you, it's okay to just hang. Let your spine round. Try to be as soft as you can. And do your best not to force or press. As you enter into this shape, I'll talk a little bit about yin yoga. Yin yoga is derived from or inspired by or extrapolated from the sciences of Chinese traditional medicine in the Far East. Taoist theory of yin and yang, of dualities to help us understand non-duality. Yin turns towards what Chinese medicine thinks of as yin tissue in the body. That's one of the reasons we call it that. Every once in a while, my dog will come through. She's an old dog, so she's a good friend to talk about yin with. As we get older, there's more compression in our connective tissue over time. We become more dense, and we tend to have just more connective tissue as we get older. So whether you're older than you were yesterday and you still feel young, etc., so on, your connective tissue is the dense part of your body. Sometimes we think of this as our spongy tissues, like your cartilage. It really runs like netting throughout your entire system. This yin tissue doesn't respond to yang action. So yin and yang, yin is what is cool and quiet, lunar and internal, soft and slow. It is always sort of the shadow version, or the nighttime, the darkened, sort of different kind of mysterious way. And what is yang is often referred to as what is solar and bright, what is active, muscular in this case. Our muscle tissue, things like skin organs, often those are our yang tissues. But really they're all integrated, right? Each organ, each part of you is equally both. And so as you allow yourself to do this work, we're not trying to be active because that will turn on our yang tissues. The more compression we can put in our yin tissues and our connective tissue in these sorts of postures, the more benefit we get from the functional point of view. You want to come to an understanding of the purpose and that it's different than more active practices like vinyasa or hatha or ashtanga, which often present a little bit of yin at the beginning and the end, a little bit of softening and staying, and a lot of yang in the middle, activity, action. In our yin practice, there are 3 major principles to guide you. Before we go over them, we're going to change positions here. So slowly, over the next few breaths, maybe hanging your head, use your hands to support you, roll yourself up. And take your time in neutral. Once you're upright, you can always lean back or twist a little. Those sorts of things feel good for you. All right. I'm going to take another seated forward fold, the Baddha Konasana form, the bound angle. We do it long, so you might have heels together and toes wide like frog legs. I'm going to come up off of my block, though you might stay up on your lift. You can use blocks, other props under your knees to support them, especially if you feel that sort of tightening in your IT bands, that stickiness there. You're always welcome to set up pillows to catch yourself as you fold down. Folding isn't required. You can stay upright if you wish. As you come forward and down, you can hang your head and relax your jaw. Now in this video, unlike a lot of videos of mine, you might see me touching my phone a lot. I'm using the clock on my phone. I'll explain that in a moment. And just so you're aware, that I have my own circumstances. A dog will run through. Sometimes I have to put firewood in my wood stove, etc., and so on. All right. Once you've found your sort of version of the pose, we'll stay. And I'll talk about these 3 principles. Sometimes they're called tattvas or truths. And really they're just a functional structure so that we don't have to spend too much time discerning what right action is in this type of practice. And the first principle is the pertinent shape or edge. So like I said, this connective tissue edge is usually a much softer, less deep place because we're not leveraging ourselves muscularly. We don't have that supportive leverage to stretch active in our muscles. And instead we're trying to put pressure on our joints and connective tissues. And we stay to put pressure on the body. And this pressure is soft, soft pressure. I say pressure, compression is sometimes the word used. It re-knits and changes, it unknots and softens. It allows structure to grow where we need it in our connective tissue and softness to grow where we need it through these functional ranges of motion. So you might think of this as about anywhere between 50–85% of what your active range of motion might be if you're accustomed or familiar with that. All right, so that's the pertinent edge or shape. I want to encourage you to be creative and not to go too deep. If you get into the shape and you feel after a little bit like it's starting to become active, or you feel panic, or there's really acute sensation, then you might back off. Sometimes it takes time to sort of figure out where the edge is in our practice, over practices in time, and over the practice that we're in. If for any reason you find the shape isn't for you, you're never obligated. You can always come out, do a different shape entirely, skip it if you need to. Our second principle, however, is stillness. You're not stuck. You don't have to hold still. We want to be relaxed and passive and as still as we can. I'm fidgeting around a little bit to make sure the microphone can pick up what I'm saying, but do your best to let your head hang, to let your itches itch without scratching them, to let your dog lick your ear without pushing it away, if you can. There's a couple good reasons to move. One might be that you find you have more space, right? Things have softened that were tight and you need to kind of move props out of the way. And the other reason to move might be because you found you've gone too deep and you need to back out or come out of the pose entirely. Sometimes something energetic or emotional, sometimes a memory or history emerges that we weren't expecting, just a feeling or sensation that we know is not the right one to explore for today. And if that comes up for you, it's always okay just to come out of the pose, to find a comfortable seat or to lie on your back and rest, and into any other pose that's comfortable for you or that feels good, and return to us when you feel ready for it and it feels right. There's no set of prescriptive perfect postures that are right for every body. And so I leave a lot of responsibility to you, to your own discernment, not sovereignty of your own acuity to decide what you need to do, what's right for you, knowing that you are equally loved and supported from this end, regardless of the choices that you make. Even if the choice is to turn off the video and walk out the door today and do something else. Our third principle or tattva is time. And I'm keeping time on my phone. We stay anywhere from like 2 to sometimes 12, 13 minutes, sometimes much longer for some folks really need that time. It takes our twitch muscles and our muscles in general a long time to calm down and stop activating. This is one of the reasons for the hold. The other idea is just that amount of pressure gives us the ability to create compression through relaxation as opposed to through action in the body. Usually I'll give you a halfway mark, not in these first 2, we talked through it a little bit. Then I'll give you a final minute mark so you know how long we're going to be there. Those are good times to consider if you need to adjust, if you need to move, especially if you've been trying to be still. If you're fidgety, it's normal to be fidgety. You need to assess whether you're distracting yourself with movement or whether the movement is necessary. And we'll stay here for about 1 more minute. Notice if you're breathing. Check in with the muscles of your face and jaw. Do your best to soften what you can. A lot of this, especially if you are experiencing stress or there's trauma in your body or in your mind, is just trying again and again. It is allowing yourself a persistence towards softness, ease, relaxation, even in the face of so many reasons not to do those things. Very slowly, without jarring loose, the sense of softness, trying to drag your head and keeping that looseness of your face and neck. Roll yourself up towards the seat. Now, in between poses, you might just pause in neutral and feel. You don't want to shake off necessarily the sensations. Sometimes it is necessary to kind of move and slowly stretch. Maybe you extend your legs out, and some folks will put the soles of their feet on the ground, drop their knees from side to side after postures like this. All right. Next, we'll come forward onto the stomach. So I'm going to come into Sphinx pose. You might already know the Sphinx pose or have an idea about what it's like, like the Sphinx in Egypt. For some of us, the low back really compresses in this pose when your belly is down, and so lifting yourself up will feel like a lot. If that's you, you might sort of roll up a towel and try putting it under your ribs or underneath the front of your hips and see if that changes anything. Sometimes under the low belly itself will give you what you need, but you will feel a little bit like, something's pushing into your low stomach. You might drop the soles of the feet down, the tops of the feet down, the soles of the feet up. You can let your glutes relax. You don't have to work your feet to the floor or anything like that. I'm up on my elbows. You can always take your elbows further forward if you feel like lower down is better for you, or out wide. Some of us actually just feel so much compression in the lower back naturally lying on the stomach that coming down onto the face or making a pillow with your palms might be best for you. If you have a big bolster, you could hook your forearms over it, or you could hook your armpits over it and have full lifted support. Some of us will best in the neck with the head hanging upright. Some of us will hang the head down and drop the shoulders back. Once you arrive in your version of the posture, know that you might also make adjustments that I haven't mentioned that just make sense for you. And then we'll hold for time. We're just trying to stay and practice paying attention to how things are from a relaxed point of view. You might think of this as a little bit of a bhakti practice in which we practice radical compassion for ourselves. We're not trying to change or fix or fit anything in any particular way. You might practice listening to your heart beating in your chest, your blood moving through your veins in these long held poses. And every once in a while, scan your body and notice if you started to tense up. See if you can let yourself relax again as much as you are able. And of course, there's a little bit of structure in some of these postures, right? If you just went limp, you'd kind of just fall to the ground. I want to acknowledge that. And we're still just trying to find that sama-siti balance, that place between softness and effort. We just turned the volume way down, right? So a lot more softness, a lot less effort. Minimal required effort. We're halfway through our time here. You're welcome, if you need more compression in your lower back, to come up to the seal pose, to extend up through your arms, and or to bend your knees and let your toes fall towards your tail. You could also bend your knees just a little and put a prop underneath your shins. If at any point you move into a different variation and then it becomes too active or there's too much intensity, as it were, you could always just back off. Since our goal is not to get to the nth degree or to complete or perfect process-oriented activity, Bhakti is a type of yoga, a practice of yoga about devotion. And a lot of the OG Bhaktis devote their heart energy, their life work, their karma, as it were, to a saint or a teacher or a deity. You could also just dedicate yourself to the context of irrational hope. And we always sort of have the ability as humans to continue to turn towards. Remember that holding space for what is difficult and heartbreaking also is about holding space for the plausibility and coexistence of what is changing, growing, beautiful, joyful, etc., so on. The two things coexist. We're in our final minute here. And slowly, over time, you might even take it quite slow, 10 breaths, etc., so on. Lower down, release your pose. You might bring one ear or the other to the mat or the arms back by the sides. Work into this open shoulder stretch, a form of half bow pose. Take your right arm out to the right, palm down. Now you can experiment with like shoulder height. You can bend your elbow and experiment with that. You could take your arm higher up to catch your armpit more or lower down. Sometimes it feels different or good to do it this way with your palm up. But if it feels like the only way, I suggest try it sometimes with the palm down. Now once you've established where you want your right hand, which you could always try a couple different things, look to the left with your right cheek on the mat. And bring your left hand to the mat and roll to the right. And I kind of lift up over my microphone, but you don't have to do that. Once you've rolled to the right, drop your head towards the earth. You could use your left hand as a pillow or a prop as a pillow. You can always stack your legs or stagger them or step your top foot back. Every once in a while, someone will really love taking their top arm over around behind their back. And because we take more compression into the lower body, we often hold our postures longer in the lower body, as the tissue is denser with its relationship with gravity. Yogis tend to hold more body weight in the upper body in practice. But also, In a world where our technology has become so hand and shoulder and arm based, our tension and stress tends to really live up there. There is a lot of compression from our daily life. We won't be in this posture quite as long as some of those lower body effective poses we've already done. Notice your jaw, your tongue, your teeth. And you let your brow soften so much your eyebrows feel loose. Let your face and jaw and lips be so soft that you might even almost have a sense of swollenness. Let gravity affect you. Especially where compression feels acute, cultivate softness, non-attachment, non-reactivity. Final minute in this pose on this side. Very slowly, using the support of your left hand to catch you, roll back onto the front of your body. You might open and close your right hand or bend your elbow a few times. We'll do the opposite side and take your left arm out to the left. Roll over the left side of your body. Things might be the same from side to side, but they don't have to be. You might need more or less support. Body might go a slightly different direction. We're just practicing the simple ritual of paying attention. The idea is that relaxation is the stillest pond, most likely to be able to still our body, the vibrations of our thoughts. And really all matter is just like, vibrating slower, that's why it seems more solid, right? Energy vibrating faster is moving faster, right? So this vibrational idea seems very sort of out there, but it's actually pretty pragmatic. As we still those vibrations, right? The water becomes more clear, easier to see through. Hopefully we can see the truth, gain perspective. Most likely to have wisdom. Least likely to suffer is the idea. And we're here in our final minute in this pose on this side. Very slowly, taking your own time. Use your right hand to support you as you roll back onto the front seam of your body. And again, there might be opening and closing. There might be a rolling of the shoulders, maybe just some stillness. Notice how things have changed, or how they're the same. Just feel for how they are now. And slowly come up through hands and knees position. You might press yourself up in this direction. Curl your toes under. And another very short time period in the shape. Shift your weight back. You can always fold up a blanket underneath or behind your knees or thighs to relieve compression. You can always spread your toes. You're welcome to go further back if for some reason that feels reasonable. It is quite far back there. We're only going to be here for 30 more seconds or so. So know that this stretch for the arch of your foot, right, in yoga and the energy body, there's a little bit of lore around the idea that the soles of our feet is where we sort of pass knowledge through, where we gain information from our teachers and from the earth. And so keeping that sort of heart, sole of the foot, the arch of the foot open, the information is the pertinent idea. Also, this time of year, just shove our feet into shoes, and they tend not to have a lot of time to stretch or compress. And just a few more breaths here. All right, slowly release, bring your hands forward. And bring the tops of your feet down just to counter stretch for a moment. And you can either sit your hips to your heels, or if you know it's for you, you could sit your hips between your heels. You're also always welcome to put a lift under your hips if compression in your knees is a lot. And again, not a super long hold, but you're welcome if it's for you to go back onto your elbows and hang your head back. You can always put a prop underneath your head or underneath your back. Some of you might feel good going all the way down to the floor, just so long as your knees don't feel tugged. It's okay if they lift a little bit. This practice also just involves a lot of silence. So if you start to notice again, right? How do you interact with silence? What do you pay attention to? Does your mind wander to list making, planning for the future, rehashing the past? Do you storytell? All of these are just patterns of nature. And when we practice yoga, we're paying attention to them, witnessing them, observing them. If you went down and back in this shape, slowly coming upright. Welcome forward to a hands and knees position, and you could take one leg back. Stretch out your foot and your Achilles tendon and your knee a few times. Feel free to do it on the opposite side. And before we come into some hands and knees formatted postures, I'm going to do backward bend, the camel pose. So I'm going to demonstrate a baby camel first. So sit your hips on your heels, or you can do it cross-legged or from a chair. I'm sitting up now on a prop between my heels, so I have some lift. I just call this baby camel as a way of backward bending, trying to put the back bend in the thoracic spine without over pressurizing the lower back. Sometimes the camel posture does that for folks. You'd interweave your fingers at the base of your neck. Bringing your arms up overhead doesn't feel good, but you could bring your hands to your waist, to your lower ribs. Feel free to do that as well. Inhale to lift your heart up. And on your exhale, you might lean your head back into your hands, catching the base of my skull, occiput, and lifting it up. My elbows are kind of going forward and up. You could also work them wide if that feels good. You can stick out your tail if it doesn't hurt in your lower back. Keep lifting your heart up so that as you do that, you're lifting and making space as well as adding compression. You can draw your navel back and lift the floor of your pelvis up. You might continue with that if that's for you. If you want to find the camel pose, you could rise to standing on your knees and bring your hands to your lower back. Press your hips forward and also bring your wrists in, fingers out. You could hang your head back if your neck allows. Keep your chin tucked. You could reach back for your heels if you see what's behind you. It feels pretty good. Minimum load bearing or weight bearing in your heels. Try to press your hips forward and your heart up. And breathe. We'll take about 5 more breaths in each shape. But you can always come out early and rest. I want to note, right, if you've started to try to do this and you're watching the video and think, this is not for me, you can do a supported form at the edge of a bed, and I happen to have one here, so I'll show it. If you're doing your thing and it already feels good, feel free to stick with it. You're going to slide your feet underneath, lean back and over, right? And you can put a pillow under your head. You can always pad your knees. That way you have support without having to do as much. Edge of a couch is a good height, or a sturdy chair with a pillow cushion on top of it. All right, slowly rise up and out, whatever form of posture you were doing. You can come again to the seat you took. Some of you might find you need to come to child's pose, your forehead going to a block or the earth like this. If you can stay upright, do. Let your hands come, palms up, let your chin tuck a little. Take a few breaths. And we're going to take one more yin posture, just 2 sides to it, before we do some of our more yang actions. And even then, I'm going to stay on the yin side of things, the shady side of the mountain, as it were. As you see fit, come forward to hands and knees. Right? I'll demonstrate a way of doing this from a seat if hands and knees position is not for your body today. Otherwise, inhale to take your left arm out to the left and up overhead, reaching up, maybe gazing up. And exhale to thread the needle, go underneath and behind your right wrist. Now, you might set up a catch. I've got a block here that I'm now putting a blanket over. And you could land your shoulder on that so you don't have to come so low to the ground. You could hang your head off of it. If you find coming to the earth is reasonable, remember you don't have to twist super far. You want to compress your left shoulder. Some people take the top arm up and over around behind the back. In yin, I tend to like the support of my opposite arm. And then we stay for time. Once you've done the fidgeting and fixing that you need to do, stay in the pose. I'll demonstrate an alternative. The seat is for you. And do this across the body, right? Dropping your arm across your body. You could play around softly over time with where your neck hangs while you do this. You also do it up against a wall with your front body facing it. Again, in this shoulder work, we're staying for about 3 minutes. So I tell you that final minute mark at 2 minutes instead of a halfway mark. Notice any sensations that emerge from your body.
I tend to find that grounding into the body for sensations is a nice way to feel your way through your experience as a living creature. Sometimes we go in and there's trauma there, so if feeling inward is not for you, you might notice what's outward. Like for me, it's like the sound of my older dog breathing, my own breath. You might notice what's around you in a calm way. Try not to go over vigilant, noticing just the given circumstances of how things are. We're in our final minute on this side in this pose. Closing your eyes or look at one spot. That can be one way to sort of limit your vast range of attention if you tend to wander. That's not a tactic of intentionality. Very slowly, using the support of your right hand, come back to neutral. You might take a moment to let your left arm hang and swing just by twisting a little to the left, lift your left shoulder up. Open and close your left hand a couple of times before dropping it down. And we'll do the other side. You can inhale your right arm up, twisting to the right, maybe gazing up. You can always take a little time there. If it feels good to stretch around. When you feel ready for it, thread the needle underneath and behind. This type of practice can be a rigorous discipline for those of us who turn to activity or productivity for value. Also for those of us who are very analytical and fill silent space with lots of thought. So if that's you, this is just a little compassionate love note. You're human too. Those qualities in you, those adaptations, may have helped you survive, may be advantageous to you or to the rest of us around you. So I'm not here to devalue them, just to sort of ask in a purpose of self sort of training when you can put things down and when you want to bring them along. In the yoga practice, it's okay to bring it along and work it out. Look at care and slowness, replacing your left hand on the mat, releasing your right arm. And again, you might sort of twist a little to the right so you can hang your right arm, open and close your hand, and gently go
or placing your hand down. From here, we're going to do some movement. Move into the body. And keep my props nearby in case they are needed. I urge you to move in a way that feels good for you with no rush. If we're wearing hands and knees for quite a while, there's epoxy under my floor here, so it's a pretty soft floor under my mat. If you need more padding under your knees, feel free to fold up that blanket, etc. Make the space. You can also do these cow-cat tilts from a seated position with your hands on your knees. All right. Inhale, cow pose. Drop your belly and your ribs. Lift your chin and your tail up. Exhale towards cat pose. Round your spine. Drop your chin. Tuck it in. Tuck your tail under. Inhale to cow. Exhale to cat. And inhale, cow. And just stay. Take a few breaths. And wiggle your hips from side to side. Roll your neck. Or be still and experience. Exhale, cat. And again, breathing. Draw your navel up and back. Inhale, cow. Exhale, cat. Inhale, cow. Exhale, cat. Inhale, cow. Option to add, exhaling to bend your elbows, offering your chest and chin, honor towards the earth. You don't come to the earth, you could put a block there. That way you have something to land your chin on. Be careful with the back of your neck. It can be a lot of compression. Inhale, cow pose, and exhale, cat. Inhale, cow. Keep your tail up as you exhale to lower your chest and chin, going forward instead of back. Keep your elbows up. Inhale, cow pose. Exhale, cat. Inhale, cow. Exhale, lower your chest and chin. Inhale, cow. Exhale, cat. Inhale, cow pose. Exhale, lower your chest and chin. Inhale, cow pose. Exhale, cat. Inhale, cow. Exhale, lower your chest and chin. Inhale, cow. Exhale, cat. Inhale, cow, and reach your right leg back. Exhale, bring your knee to your nose, your chin to your chest, round your spine. Inhale, reach it back. Exhale, bring your knee forward, step your foot forward. You might have to take it to the outside or grab it and draw it up. And coming into a long low lunge. And you might feel a lot of pressure on that back knee now if you didn't before. You could pat it or roll your mat over. Sink your hips forward and down. You might hook your right shoulder and your right knee. You could always use your props to give you more lift and height if the compression is a lot. You can curl your back toes, even bend your back knee if you wish. These can be done at a wall. with your back shin and foot up against the wall at whatever degree of bend is appropriate for your quad. Hang your head if your neck is available. Make sure your right foot is stable and climb up onto your right knee thigh. Use an inhale to reach your left arm up. And if you'd like, exhale to side bend over to the right, and you could take your right hand towards the earth or a prop over there. Only if it feels very familiar and good, you could always take this around into backward bending. We almost never do this many back bends. They tend to be young in nature, in the yin practice. As you're ready, slowly come down. And your left hand down inside your right foot and twist to the right. I'm going to do a wide-footed version, so I've walked my right foot out and turned it out. And also do this with your left hand up on a prop. You could bring right hand to right knee to twist. Inhale your right arm up. You bend your back knee and reach for your foot. Always keep this more basic and centered. If you feel like you want that yin quality still and you have extra time, you could always just pause the video, stay for a few minutes, whatever version you wish, and then come up and out. Encourage you to use your cahoots, your knowledge. And release 2 hands down inside. We'll do dragon, lunge, or lizard. You could stay on your hands or up on props or come down to forearms. You might hang your head. You can always place a prop for your head. Sometimes that's really helpful if you have neck issues. Play around with very gently pressing your forehead with relaxed shoulders into the prop. You feel a lot in your right knee. You might walk your right foot more forward or more out to the right. And slowly come up. All right. And slowly make your way back. Drag your foot back or slide it back into tabletop shape. Inhale, cow. Exhale, cat. Inhale, cow. Exhale, cat. Just for good measure, inhale, cow. Exhale, bend your elbows, offer your heart. Forward and down. Inhale, cow. And exhale, cow. Inhale, cow, and reach your left leg back. Exhale your knee to your nose, round your spine, squeeze your heel towards your glute. Inhale, reach it back. And exhale, step it forward and through. And that's going to be a lot of compression for some of us, right? I have my body right against my thigh. You could always lift up. One of the things that you can do if that compression is a lot is literally place a block between the two so that you can still come forward to a more rested position if you'd like, without having to feel that pinch in the hip or with some support. We want to feel supported in these postures. Another good useful support can be placing the prop under the back thigh. Sometimes right away, look, knee pressure is gone. And sometimes creating a little bit of a lip for the hip with a prop keeps us from sinking too low. For those of you who tend to sort of go to the bendy place very quickly, and nothing wrong with that. All right, as you feel stable, you could climb up onto that front knee thigh. Inhale to reach your right arm up. Breath by breath, side bend over to the left. And again, if it feels really nice to back bend, you're always welcome. As you're ready, release. Come down and bring your right hand down to the earth or a prop. You could walk your left foot out to the left, your left hand to your left knee and twist to the left. You're also welcome to bend your back knee, reach for your foot. And slowly release 2 hands down on the inside, coming to Pristasana. You can roll to the blade of your foot, but notice right now is the inside of your ankle shorter than the outside. Sometimes turning the foot out is the way, or crawling underneath. Always lift your back leg up and put it on a prop, or curl your back toes under. Just a few breaths. Slowly press up. Press into your hands and scoot your slide right back. And we'll do one more postural action here, and that is the Anahata Vishuddha. You might again bring a prop for your heart to land on. Bring another prop for your forehead to land on. And your face can hang between with your arms out long. If you feel like you have a wall nearby, which I lack walls, you could do the whole thing sort of as if the wall was your floor and slide down the wall in that way. You might find that the floor is pretty available to you. You could come forward and down. You don't have to get contact of your armpits or your chin. You can bring your forehead to the earth like a nice long child's pose. You can always use a pillow to catch you. Sometimes called the melting heart. I think a lot about the term bleeding heart. And I kind of wonder about other colloquialisms like wearing our hearts on our sleeves. I don't have much knowledge or understanding. I do want to posit the question about what our emotions are for, what they tell us about our instincts and our intellect of instinct, our intuition, how they connect us to our empathy for one another and for the things we're made of, which is the same things that the planet around us is made of. Slowly release, coming up and out. I'm going to do just a little bit of spinal balancing from here to draw it all back to center before doing some sitting and some resting. We'll take your right leg back. You might stay right here. Notice if you roll your hip way open, you don't want to drop it too far down either. I'm trying to find a place where both hips feel lifted, relatively facing the ground. I like to scooch my right hand more under my right armpit, and then you could try to reach your left arm forward. Now, even though they're on the ground, imagine your right shoulder, your right hand is moving away from your left knee and your left hip as much as your left hand moves away from your right foot. Breathe and stretch the crown of your head away. You're very strong, you don't feel much. You could pulse your arm and your leg up, keeping them straight. Breathing for 5. Draw your navel up and back for 4. Breathe and soften your jaw for 3, 2, 1. Good. Bring your left hand down. Slide your right leg out to the right. Roll the sole of your foot down. You can stay here, or again, you could thread your left arm underneath. Turn yourself to the right. Come back through the center. Inhale to pick your right leg up and reach it back. Drop it down. Inhale, cow pose. Exhale, cat. Inhale, cow. Exhale, cat. Inhale, cow. Exhale, bend your elbows, offer your heart. Inhale, cow pose. Exhale, cat. Inhale, cow pose, and reach your left leg back and long. And then take the time again, breath by breath, to find neutrality. You can't always do this with your bottom back foot down on the earth, and always do this without involving the arms. Take your time and go slow. If it's wobbly, know that that's actually good sign muscles are working and you're calibrating your nervous system. Breathe, soften. Always be on the forearm as well. If you wish, you could reach your right arm forward, draw your navel up and back. Drop your right shoulder blade down your back so you're not tensing your neck. And if you pulsed last time, you might pulse up. Breathing. And stay here for about 5 more breaths. Release your right hand down, just scooching over. Scoop your left leg out to the left and put it down. And stay here and shift your hips front to back a couple of times. Or you could take your right arm and thread it underneath. Return your right hand to the earth. Inhale your left leg around and back. And exhale your knee to the earth. All right. Take your feet off to one side or cross your ankles and your hips to a seat. I'm going to suggest a little supported fish. Fish is not for everyone. Sometimes there's degenerative neck problems. You don't necessarily need to skip the pose if you do have neck issues. If you feel like you can support yourself in it, it doesn't cause you any pain, etc. I encourage you to always go slow in these attempts. Of course, if someone who is part of your healing world or physical health world has told you not to move your body in that range of motion, I encourage you to listen to them. But to set up for this and use my props, I have one for my head, and sometimes a high setting really works. Sometimes a middle setting is what we're looking for. So we're going to start with the middle line. And the same thing with this other block. You might put it behind your heart. I like to put it between my shoulder blades lengthwise. I'm going to make sure that it's low enough that my middle back has a little bit of support. You could also put it widthwise behind your heart. Right, those lifts work as well. And sometimes it's just a little like pokey. So if it feels that way, you might put your blanket over it. You know, you don't have to get all the fancy props for it to work out. Take your time to arrange it and lay back. We're trying to open up the thoracic spine. So of course, shoulders often take compression on the opposite side. Start with your head above your heart. Unless you feel super open, then just having your head lifted enough that you feel like there's no issue with your sinuses and breathing is good. I'm going to suggest we might rest in this position or take our final resting here. You might take a moment to squeeze your hands, to press a little gently into your palms, or to rub your palms together. Centers of the palms, energetically like the soles of the feet, represent the expressiveness of the heart. If you love it and it feels comfortable, you could always rest your hands on your heart. You might feel that vibration from the friction you created transitioning down. If you like rituals, you could do that 3 times or 5 times, 1 time. When you're ready, you could let your arms hang. Some of us might feel better with the arms out. If you feel like your elbows can't come to the earth, you might shift and put something underneath your elbows. Make sure you feel supported and that you can breathe. And I'll let you know, we've been here for a few minutes. If you want to roll off to one side and lay on your back, or roll off to one side and gently come to a seat to complete your practice, that's an option. Notice what you're paying attention to. Again, if you're putting forth any effort, you don't have to put forth. If there's any way you can be more soft or at ease. The mind is particularly loud. The voice of the mind, or the voices in the mind. The stir, the marketplace of the mind, the chitta. You might just notice, like when you stand in a crowd in your own silence, how you can hear the cacophony is broad, or you can hear individual sounds and voices, but that you remain in silence. If you'd like to remain here, do. If you want to change positions, to lay on your back or your side or your belly, or to be in a seat, you might do it now. Rolling off your props, taking a few breaths to curl into a little ball on one side before transitioning to move props. And we'll settle into resting and integrating, whether in a pose or a seat or lying on your back. You might close your eyes and let your breath soften. Let any breath practices go. Put your hands in a position that doesn't draw too much unneeded attention in their way. You could do that loving heart and metta practice of loving kindness by paying attention to your heart beating in your chest, subtle I am. As you practice paying attention to how things are right now, anytime your mind goes outward in that work, just draw it back again to the inward sensation, your heart beating in your chest and your blood moving in your veins. The steady I am me. A lot of times that work is the concentration, doing it again and again and again, allowing yourself to stay kind. You find yourself distracted. When the time comes to change, I'll call you up and out. Until then, pay attention to how things really are. Sahana vavatu, sahano bhunaktu, sahaviryam karavavai, tejasti navaditamastu, ma vitvashavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May we, as we learn together, be protected. May we, as we learn together, know ease and joy. May our work together for the liberation of all be brilliant and illuminated. May our work seek to contribute to freedom, well-being of all, in the context of universality, non-dualism, and peace. When you're lying in rest or sitting in meditation and wish to remain there, feel free to take your time. You can always ignore the video or stop it. The time has come to come up to a seat. You can slowly integrate your breath. Again, breathing with purpose, just enough to draw yourself back towards waking life. The chant asks us to acknowledge that we work together, even at a great distance. Also acknowledges that we work inside of what is universal and cosmic, inside of the field of everything, right? The ancestors of the past, right? The support system of now, the privileges and oppressions, right? The pre-human times, right? The matter of the earth, and the matter of the plants, and the animals. That is the same matter that makes us us, and makes up our bodies in this lifetime. You might consider that which has taught you, that which has taught you how not to be. You might consider yourself the bravery of showing up to pay attention to how things really are, especially in the quiet postures where we stay for time. And you're welcome to roll to one side. If you're on your back, you might gather your knees in for a squeeze first. Come up to a seat. You could do any rituals of closing that are important to you. I position the Anjali Mudra, symbolizing that non-dualism, that universal perspective. The things that seem opposite or disparate have a meeting place in the field of everything where they become one. You and the things you perceive as not you, right and left, sun and moon, beginning and end, all that meeting place, right? The idea that erasing what is disparate or diverse about our experiences or the experience of this lifetime, acknowledging that we all come from the same stuff. Thank you for your time, energy, attention. You bring your thumbs to your third eye, bow to yourself, bow to the lineage of the practice from South India, Mysore, and from East Asia and China. Thank you for practicing. As always, proceeds here, 50% are always donated to the Marsha P. Johnson Institute. If you haven't checked them out, do your best to be kind to yourself and others, to stand up for what is right, to speak up for what is needed, and to always, always, always be as kind as possible. That's just my advice, really. If you have questions or concerns, always feel free to reach out. I'm just a human moving through this lifetime just like you, so it's good to learn. It's always something I'm open to hear if you have feedback or if you're just looking for something different. Otherwise, I hope that the sun shines on your face and that you get to experience nature again before we see each other again soon. Thank you.